بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وبعد. As we wrap up the conversations regarding Asharat al-Sa'ah and the signs of the Day of Judgment, it's important to remember that one of the most fundamental hadith recorded in Sahih Muslim is known as Hadith Jibreel. It's the hadith in which Jibreel alayhi salam comes in the form of a human and asks the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam a number of questions. He asks him, Mal Islam, Mal Iman, and then Mal Ihsan. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam responds to him, what is Islam? What is Iman? What is Ihsan? But he further talks about Asharat al-Sa'ah. He talks about the final hour and that the Day of Judgment will come and nobody knows when the Day of Judgment will actually arrive. But then he gives some signs and he says, يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ. You'll find people competing with one another to build the tallest buildings. You'll find that أن تلد الأمة ربتها, that a slave will give birth to her master, which is kind of an indication, according to some scholars, of the relationship between the parent and the child, among many other things. But what's most important is, and I've mentioned this repeatedly, the purpose of talking about the final hour is not to sit back and lament and, sulk and go into a state of anxiety and depression. The purpose of talking about the final hour is so that we can prepare ourselves. The difference between the Muslim's perspective on the final hour and an ordinary person's perspective on death is that if I know that tomorrow morning or today morning at 1 o'clock I have a flight, I'm not going to sit down and tell myself, oh, I have a flight today, it's the end of the world, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to go to sleep. No, I know that I have a flight at 1 o'clock. Everyone's going to start boarding around 12 o'clock. The airport is about 30 minutes from my house. It's going to take me about an hour to prepare. So by 11 o'clock, I have to be outside of my house. That's preparation for a trip. When we talk about our leaving this world, or we talk about the final hour, or we talk about Qiyamah, we talk about it in a way or in a context like we're preparing for a trip. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the signs. He's saying that people are going to board this final flight when Masjid al-Dajjal is going to come out, when the sun is going to rise from the other side, when this sign. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger also gives us the smaller signs. He says when you see earthquakes, when you see tremors, when you see people disobeying, when you see people being led by the worst among them, all of these signs, that's like we're being told that, okay, they opened up the gates, now start getting ready. It's like you get a notification, your flight's about to leave in 2 hours or 3 hours. That's how we think about our own death, and that's how we think about the final hour, as a reason to prepare. Not a reason for us to sit back and say, oh man, there's only 2 hours left for the flight, forget about it. I'm just going to sit at home. Our mentality is very different. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to draw inspiration and think about either our final moments or the Day of Judgment. Because the scholars, they say that the final hour, Qiyam al-Sa'ah, there's two types. The Sughra and the Kubra. The minor form and the major form. The minor form is our own death. Whether Qiyamah happens in 1,000 years, whether it happens in 100 years, whether it happens in 50 years, when my eyes shut, finally my Qiyamah has already begun. My accountability and hisab is going to begin. And for those who will witness the actual Asharat al-Sa'ah and the Qiyam al-Sa'ah, then for them that's the Day of Judgment. It's a moment of preparation, not a moment of laziness and procrastination. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen us, and may Allah make this a source of inspiration, and may He allow us to be prepared when our time comes. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.